Hello and welcome to IndiaPostLive.com, India's first live and interactive news conversation web TV. I'm Prachi Jatanya. The 2014 Lok Sabha elections were clearly a Twitter election. The media strategy led by Twitter India definitely got them a lot of users, journalists and individual politicians also freely interacting using their Twitter handle with people to express their views and to talk about the election campaigning, including the Prime Ministerial candidate Narendra Modi. So with Twitter emerging as an important tool in the world's largest democratic election exercise, Twitter India now plans to replicate this model in other parts of the world, especially the one where countries are about to go to polls. We find out more details. Take a look.
Did you know that there has been a 600% increase in the volume of Twitter conversation in India around the 2014 elections alone? What Twitter had done in India was provide the forum that politicians, including Narendra Modi, were looking for in election campaigning, and also partner with mobile and media firms to distribute tweets online and offline. And now, with elections due in Brazil, Indonesia, as well as the midterm polls in the United States later this year, San Francisco-based microblogging site Twitter plans to take its India lessons abroad to expand its foothold in the political arena and increase its user base. Will the India experience serve as a model for other developing countries? And might it have an adverse impact in the US due to the overload of social media?
You're tuned in to India Post Live at The Conversation, and to take forward this interactive session, we have in the studio Mr. Abhinav Sahai, who is the COO of Nisway Digital Marketing. We also have on Google Hangout Mr. Daksh Sharma, who's a social media strategist and a director at iFert. Thank you so much, Mr. Daksh and Mr. Sahai. I'll come to you, Mr. Sahai. What did you think about Twitter India's election strategy overall? What were the big standout points according to you?
See, when it comes to the strategy point of view, I think Twitter as a brand has evolved. And when you look at elections specifically, what they have maintained is, if you look at the key points, one is that the user engagement went up like multiple times, right? The politicians would converse to the nation directly. Earlier, it was a one-way traffic which was happening through the media or through the rallies that they could conduct. But through Twitter, they could interact one-on-one with their audience directly. So
real time.
That's the most important thing actually, real time. So they knew what people want, they knew what people expect out of them, and they could answer those questions, interact in real time, right? So that was one primary thing which actually drove the election and the voting also percentage a lot up. I think those are the three key takeaways for them.
Right. Mr. Sharma, thank you so much for being at The Conversation on India Post Live. If you can hear me, what were the key standout points according to you in the election strategy led by Twitter India? What really worked and maybe what didn't work?
I think specifically, if you look at what has happened in these elections, I think these have been game-changing elections as far as I know. First of all, the volume of tweets according to Twitter India have really gone up by a huge number. And I was reading a report which says 58 million tweets were made right from the day when the year started till the day Modi actually won the elections. Now, as far as the election day is concerned, or the day when the results were announced, about 2 million tweets were made. Now, that is an astounding number when you compare it to the elections of 2009, when we had only one politician who was actually active, and he had about 6,000 followers. Twitter has...
I think there's a bit of a disturbance there with Mr. Daksh Sharma. I'll go to Ms. Dipti Sutaria, also social media expert and expert in cyber law. Thank you so much, Ms. Sutaria, for joining us. We appreciate your views on the topic at India Post Live. What are your thoughts about the election strategy led by Twitter India, and do you feel they can replicate it in other parts of the world?
I think this is where we should replicate. Twitter has, not only Twitter, but the entire social media, if I count down the Facebook also, and the other sources of social media, they have, even a lay person, has come down to this platform and has performed well. Even I've seen people making their IDs and coming up with their views on Twitter who are not knowing how to access computer resource. So I believe that this should be replicated as it would have been somewhere years, ages back. Then I think Mrs. Indira Gandhi would have had some uh, say enormous people around then if the social media was existing in those years. So I believe this has its own importance and impact equally. I feel this should be replicated, and Twitter has done a great job. Tremendously huge connectivity, not only in the cities, the metros, even the small little suburbs and towns I've found. So, first of all, from the BJP platform, I'm seriously thankful to Twitter to come ahead and have a tie-up with. I seriously don't know because Piyush ji was looking into the entire social media, and seriously thankful so that we could also get connected to all those people who were not really on this platform. Thank you so much for to Twitter for this. And I would always recommend that please replicate. We want the best leaders in all other countries also.
Right. I'll just go back to Mr. Daksh again. If you could just make your point, there were some audio glitches, Mr. Daksh.
Hello.
Yes, if you is your mic unmuted? Please go ahead.
Yes, I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
So, what I was talking about was the fact that Twitter has worked out on partnerships quite beautifully for these elections. And if you look at the TV channels, I think the TV has become very social in nature. There's not even any TV channel that we don't know of where news journalists are not reading tweets and are taking social inferences from them. Whether it is Arnab Goswami or whether it is NDTV or anybody else, everybody has been looking at what is it that the politicians are tweeting about, which are the political parties that are actually ruling, the Twitter battle. Secondly, there is also this huge impact that the politicians themselves are revealing news that is Twitter first. So whether it is Arvind Kejriwal asking the group to join India Gate at 6 p.m. for a rally, or whether it is the fact that he's been tweeting about the incident that had happened to him in Varanasi, everybody has been making an impact where it is Twitter just content. Also, I think Twitter has beautifully worked out on partnerships with TV, where they have tied up with Airtel DTH, and all you need to do is press the green button on your remote, and you can actually see the tweets that are being made in real time. So it's not just about Twitter being accessible through mobile web or mobile applications. You are talking about Twitter being connected through DTH. You're talking about Twitter being social in terms of TV. And also you're talking about Twitter, where DT was making the point where Twitter is also accessible through text or SMS, where people who don't have access to response, they can also get it.
Right. I think there's a major disturbance. They will try our team, we'll get our team to look into that. But Mr. Sahai, like they are talking, there was also a very specific feature, tweet to remember.
Right,
also the
right.
fact that there were Twitter selfies on the day of voting in various parts of the state. It had become more of like a trending topic. So tweet to remember, a tool that a lot of Twitter users actually used. Also the map where, there were beaming lights coming on,
Right,
India
right.
map. Would you like to tell us in terms of a brand, Twitter India, how successful were they in using that?
See, Twitter is if you look at, from the background, it is a technology company. So it wants to enable users to be more interactive, to be able to do more things, right? As a platform, you want to do more. So tweet to remember, they enable the phones to connect with your calendars, right? So if you could connect your calendars with your Twitter account, you can remember this is the day of the election, right? And you can obviously set reminders to that. 1 day prior, remind me, or 10 hours prior, remind me, things like that. So people who are busy in their lives, but they can get a reminder from Twitter. So as a technology platform, we've taken leaps and bounds, in terms of engaging the user and making sure that things are happening. Specifically in terms of, if you look at India has the vast amount of mobile users, and Twitter is primarily a mobile platform, right? You can take it on your go. It's so engaging that you can do everything that you can do on your desktop, right? Everything on your mobile as well. So that is why I think Twitter has been able to roll its success, India specifically, because of the mobile growth that has happened, over the mobile internet growth that has happened.
Right.
Right.
And if we look at it as a tool in election exercises, it was first used, during the US presidential elections in
Right.
2012. Barack Obama had millions of Twitter followers. So it really became like a status symbol to be following Barack Obama and his tweets.
That's right. See, what happens is, so if you look at India, I think Daksh was just mentioning that 2009, India's only politician had about 6,000 followers. Probably it was Shashi Tharoor at that time, right? And now, if you look at it, he has over 2 million followers. Similarly, Narendra Modi's following has jumped like 78% last 6 months, right? So it's become a fad to follow politicians and just look at them. For Twitter as a brand, it becomes important because what happens is, see, if the politicians are engaging, the political parties are engaging, you know that they will advertise with them, right? So as a brand, it becomes important for me that my revenues also go up in terms of
Associating with them.
right, absolutely.
Right. And if we look at their entire grand plan of replicating this electoral exercise that they tried out in India, the largest democracy,
Right.
with so many voters and so many Twitter users, do you think they will have any sort of a bigger success in countries like Brazil, again, Indonesia, or even the US, again, which is planning to go to polls?
See, I don't see any challenge. The only thing that I think is different in other countries is that India as a nation had 2/3 of the voters under the age of 35, and if you look at Twitter audience, that is a plus point for them. While I'm not sure in other countries, especially in Indonesia and Brazil, whether that is the audience. 2/3 of the audience under 35. I'm not sure.
Exactly. So that
Yeah.
was the target audience that they could capitalize on.
Absolutely, that was the key thing that worked for them actually. Yeah. So in other countries, this might be a small challenge. Is what
Also,
I
do
see.
you also feel then they will also have to try and maybe outdo their success that they had with the 2014 India elections, when they will have something of a bigger challenge to try and outdo or outperform their own success rate in India?
Obviously, if you look at any businessman, they will say, I want to go 10x from here, right? So now whatever they have done in India, they want to go 10x in US, and especially US population is more engaged on Twitter as compared to India, right? So he'll have some plans. This should go 10 times. I'm not sure again in Indonesia or in Brazil. I'm not sure, but
Right.
US definitely.
Right. Ms. Sutaria, any views on this topic, whether they will be having to outdo themselves in trying to replicate this model in other countries?
Yeah, I think maybe they'll be breaking their own records, I can feel, like now when they have seen a better and a best result in India, and in case now if they strategically plan it, and they have proper tie-ups, and then I definitely feel maybe they seriously outdo it and they break their own records in the different countries where right now you have spoken that US is again coming up with a polling, so of course I feel.
And are you yourself a Twitter user? How often did you use it during the election season?
Exactly. What was happening was I had an account earlier and I was following, being all decked up with many things at hand. It happens that early morning, 4:30, 5 o'clock, I used to tweet a lot. Then it happens that you leave your tweets, and again it happens when with the day schedule, as the news channels they move down, and whatever you want to comment, your comments are more precious at that moment, which are again retweeted. But then again, there's plus and minus.
Right.
So, in the peak hours, in the morning wee hours, you find many Twitters, people there, and they'll definitely respond. But social media is also a place where you find positivity and negativity.
Right. I'll bring in.
It can work at best when it comes down to people like Narendra Modi. It can even work at worst when it comes down to people like Kejriwal.
Okay.
So, one has to look into controlling the magnanimity of Twitter. It's the magnanimity you have to control somehow. And looking into the laws of the nations, various nations, one has to keep in check with especially the hackers and the accounts of the celebrities, which is very essential. And I feel as one of my friends, Mrs. Gandhi in Mumbai, she is a co-convener with BJP communication cell. she was feeling that right now it is the high time when her account should be all safe and secure. So my contention is that yes, I kept tweeting and people liked it, and plus and minus again, and there's like it's something which you come out with your emotions, plus and minus. I've been a judge in judiciary for a long time, so sometimes I get angry. Reason being is I cannot stand this nuisance of
Trolls, people who.
those election campaigns are even having, I'm sorry to say that they were having romantic tweets also in between. People were like coming up and they were jumping up and they were doing all share shairis and all. So, a mix and match of tweets.
Right. Right, Ms. Dipti. I'll bring in Daksh again at this point. Daksh, do you feel then there are pros and cons like Ms. Dipti has been talking about, and technology-wise or in terms of trying to secure accounts of users who are very active on Twitter, what kind of steps do you think Twitter will have to take in the future? They've already done enough, I believe.
I think they are already doing a lot. They have been quite proactive in ensuring that the popular celebrities or the popular politicians that we have, their accounts are secured. And I think the example that I remember was what had happened with the account of PMO India. Now, that account was taken by a youngster from somewhere in UP, and he was a 19-year-old guy. He grabbed his 15 minutes of fame, where he was able to successfully get the account because the party that was going out, they had moved the account to archive. So I think Twitter has been quite proactive in ensuring that the interests of the individuals or the groups are protected in whatever way. So that for me is not a problem. I think what Twitter does need to do is ensure that in terms of accessibility, as I was talking about, they need to ensure that the right kind of partnerships are being worked out, which they have been working out quite well, whether it is a TV partnership, whether it is partnership with DTH providers, or whether it is ensuring that the content of Twitter is going out through your mobile devices where internet access is a problem. So I think that is where they have to focus more. Security, because they are a technology company, that has not been a challenge because globally, whatever the policies are, at a similar level, they are being replicated to India or the other emerging markets.
Right. What about the 6-second video app that they had, Vine, that a lot of politicians use for campaigning? How intriguing was it, or how different somebody who works with social media like yourself, Mr. Sahai, how appealing was it this time around?
See, I don't think that was a big success in India. Reason being, those Vines, work on high-speed internet connection. So either you're on a Wi-Fi or you're on a good-speed 3G connection. Unless you're on that, these won't work. So a 2G connection, where most of the India still faces internet issues, right? So it's not so successful in India. But if you were to look at, the markets that they are entering now, the Indonesian market, Brazil and US, there should be a huge success. So the good part is that the user does not have to stay for hours or maybe even few minutes to stick. You can just deliver a message.
Seconds.
No, 6 seconds
6
actually,
seconds.
right? And then people are being creative about it. People are delivering multiple apps in a series of message, right? Multiple videos, I meant, in a series of messages, right? So you could do innovative things there. Lots of brands have already started using it. I think politicians now will take ownership of that.
Right. And how appealing is it? How easy is it to use Vine?
Oh, it's pretty easy. It's
Right.
pretty easy.
Mr. Daksh, would you like to add your point on using Vine and whether it will have better success in the other countries for Twitter?
I think I agree with Abhinav. Vine is relatively new, and I know of MTV India, which has been doing some interesting work out there. But largely, as far as the Indian market is concerned, I think it's been more to do with brands that have been doing some activations. I think there were one or two politicians, I can't think of the names, who were trying to use it, but due to restricted access of video content and because of issues with buffering, it's still picking up. I'm hoping that by the 2019 elections, we would have some more other forms of Vine. Regarding other countries, I'm sure because they have got better access to internet, Twitter should be able to use Vine or other connected networks in a more structured way. And I'm hoping that anyways, India is not among the top countries. India is still an emerging country for Twitter, and at 35 million users, we are just sitting on the list of the 10th or the 11th country in terms of the Twitter users. So I'm sure that we would have more successful case studies where politicians will be able to leverage Vine.
Right. On that point itself, Mr. Sharma, then don't you feel that, this kind of microcosm that it gave it the electoral exercise that India had and Twitter's, featuring different models here, do you feel that the American society or the American media has already had enough saturation of social media because it's been there much longer than it has been in developing or emerging countries such as India or even Brazil for that matter? Do you think it will have a cancelling out effect that users won't be as excited?
I think that would happen with any network, and I'm sure that you would have read news where there were articles that were talking about US teens dropping out from Facebook and looking at other forms of engagement, whether it was networks like WhatsApp or other networks. I'm sure that any network reaches its maturity cycle, and there's always a dip that happens. But I think where Twitter is ensuring that they are not going to reach the maturity cycle is because they are looking at tapping on to countries like India or Brazil. So as far as US is concerned, I don't know. It's too early to predict whether it's already reached the maturity cycle, because obviously it's a huge continent, and there is still a lot of users who are still grasping the platform. But I know statistically that last year Winter Olympics had 40 million tweets. And India as a country has surpassed that with the 58 million tweets that we have been able to achieve in terms of the number of tweets that were generated for through the elections. So I think it's still picking up. It will be a little early. Probably I think in an year or so we might be having a discussion whether it's reached a maturity cycle or not.
Interesting. Great. On that note, one final comment from Mr. Sahai.
Right. See, as far as maturity levels of platforms is concerned, I think Facebook has done to death in US probably. Whatever I have been reading, and a couple of cousins sharing from there, they're like, I'm done with Facebook, especially in the younger segment, the now going to their teenage to the 20s, and people like that. So my cousins tell me they're done with it, they're not interested anymore, while they're still interested in using Twitter. So which is interesting, because both platforms came at the same time, almost at the same time, but still Twitter still maintains that people are still engaged with it, even though its dropout rate is high, and it has always been actually for Twitter. But still, I think Twitter will stay for this election, at least for next couple of years, even in the US, right? While Facebook has already lost its charm there.
Right. So maybe we'll see emerging Viber or WhatsApp as possible conversation users.
Yeah.
One final point from Ms. Dipti Sutaria. Do you think what is the way forward for Twitter in terms of election exercises across the world?
Like as right now we were discussing about the monotony with the younger generation, now what happens in like Facebook, as Mr. Sahai said that cousins say we're all done with it. And apparently your question was whether in America now it is high time when they say, okay, now social media we don't want to be there, or maybe like something new. So I think after a few years, maybe Twitter comes up with something more, exciting. It's not the end there.
Right.
And I could find Sabir Bharti a long time back speaking about Hotmail. So, something or the other will definitely keep emerging. This is a world which is not going to die, and youngsters, who have been now into monotonous stage, they have come to saying that yes, now it's enough for me. Still the people, I can promise you, still the people, they come in and they will definitely look Twitter, what's happening there, or maybe they leave a little two dots or fill in the blanks kind of thing, but then still they will peep in and see if they are getting new followers.
Okay.
Even Narendra Modi ji is more excited about, and if you have known that the first thing which he has picked up was his laptop.
Yes.
And basically, Narendra Modi ji is a person who looks into his own things on the social media.
Right.
As he has many followers, and he's following many elite people of India. So I believe nothing is going to die if it comes down to your earlier question. And where I wanted to say, but yes, youngsters have to take care about especially the abuse part here.
Right. Okay. On that note, we'll take forward this conversation on our website and our Twitter handle. Thank you all for participating at the conversation on India Post Live. Do put in your comments and feedback, and whether you use the Twitter India apps at all. What's the way forward for Twitter India? How successful will its model be in the other countries that go to polls later this year? Stay tuned to India Post Live. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all to all our guests. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Daksh
so much.
Sharma as well. Thank you.